Did you hear that?
Yep,
Okay. So Mary, thanks for doing this. Are you okay with us sharing this recording of your story publicly?
absolutely.
Thank you. I mean it. Thank you. Can you or anyone you mention in your story get in trouble or face legal prosecution for anything that you share?
No.
Sweet. Mine either. So the time is yours, and identify however you want. I'm going to mute myself and just go along for the ride.
All right, thanks, man. My name's Mary, and I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. I also struggle with anorexia nervosa and exercise-induced bulimia, and I have complex PTSD. So I'm a real treat. Um, when I was young, you know, our family was pretty normal from the outside, to be honest. We had a wonderful home, two cats, and it's me and my brother and my folks, and they've never been divorced. I was hugged every day and told I was loved, and so I didn't have this horrific childhood, but I did have some sexual abuse. And it lasted from when I was about 4 until I was about 9 years old. And so that definitely affected the way that I responded to the world, and and the way that I responded to other human beings, and what I thought about my self-worth. Having that experience, and then I personally believe that I was kind of born to be an addict and an alcoholic. It's in my genes on both sides of the family. I was fucked from the beginning. But having that experience in my childhood definitely affected how soon I found drugs and alcohol to be a solution for me, and how hard and fast it took me down. Um, the first drug of choice was huffing because it was easy to get a hold of. You got the gas can in the garage, you got the spray paint. Lacquer was the best because it's clear. So when you spray it, it doesn't show up anywhere. But damn, you can get a good high from it. Um, that was my first experience with checking out, right? And numbing in that dreamlike state was something that I chased my whole life. And I started smoking at age 10. I remember we had this babysitter, and she was wonderful, and she was in recovery. Her ex-husband was not. She would go off to the grocery store, and he would show up with his drugs and use her, because he didn't have a place. So he used her place to get high while she was gone. And he showed up one day and he put his fat rock on the counter, and I said, "Hey, uncle, what's that?" And he said, "It's for my headaches." I said, "Does auntie know about your headaches?" And he looked at me, he goes, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want cigarettes. I want cigarettes when I ask for them, as many of them, like on point, and we'll keep this between us." And he said, "Okay, kid, you got it." So from that point on, I can't smoke all these smokes. That was my very first hustle. I sold more than I smoked because a 10-year-old doesn't have the time in the day by themselves to smoke that many cigarettes. So that was the first time that I felt like I was in control. That feeling of I'm in control of how this scenario goes. I'm in control of when I get to check out and what that looks like. And so that mentality, the ego and the pride, and the how fiercely I wanted to control everything around me started very, very young. He eventually screwed up and got high in front of the bathroom door, and she couldn't get in, found him in there. And anyway, he screwed the whole thing up for me. But I made bank at the local junior high for a little while. By the time I got into high school, I started dancing. I was on a competition dance team, and I was good, and I loved it. It was the first love of my life was dance, outside of getting high. And it was a motivator for a little while, until I figured out that if I wanted to have a dancer's body, I needed to not eat like I ate. And so I stopped. And to get energy, I would exercise to the point of my body shaking, and my body would put out massive amounts of adrenaline. I eventually started to become ill from all the adrenaline. It's actually not good for you. And so I went to the doctor, and because I had heard that there are these pills that they give you for anxiety. And I had lots of friends that had these pills and they were wonderful. So I also figured out that if you cry enough in a doctor's office, you can get more of those pills. And if you use them up too quick and your prescription runs out, cry again and you can get more. And if that doctor doesn't work, go ahead and go to a different doctor and you can get more. And that was, it's like the disease of more for me. Whatever it is, I got to have more. And no matter what, I'm afraid of that moment when I run out. That fear of running out drove me. So I spent all of high school with no food in my system, dropping weight really fast and high as a kite. And I functioned that way. Not great. I was definitely not a nice human being. I hated everybody, and in turn they hated me, and rightly so. I was not a nice person, and I was okay with that because that kept you out here. I don't want to be friends with you. I don't want to be homies. Like I have enough friends. I'm good, right? So straight out of the gate, I want nothing to do with you. And that lasted all through high school until I got so ill that shortly after I graduated, my body gave out. It took a dive. And I never knew how much was going to get me high, if it was going to take 10 pills or if it was going to take one. And my liver and my kidneys were not processing properly. I was 70 pounds the day I walked into a treatment center in, I want to say Wickenburg. It's Wickenburg, Arizona. And the only reason I wound up in that treatment center is because my father got sober when I was young. And I was laying on their couch for like the 4th day in a row. I hadn't moved, hadn't done anything, I hadn't eaten anything, barely speaking, just coming in and out of consciousness. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not going to let you be in my home and die. If you want to choose to die, you can do it someplace else. And that was the worst feeling at the time that I thought I could ever have. And so I told him, I said, Daddy, I can't. I don't know how to not die. I don't know how to not do what I'm doing. So thus got the ball rolling on getting into treatment and figuring out how to get me better. First things first, I had to teach my stomach how to digest food again. I had to learn how to eat again because I had become so disconnected from the basics of human, like the basic things that we do to take care of ourselves. I was completely disconnected. And when I got out of treatment, I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember thinking how much bullshit it was that I had watched my dad get sober. I knew better. I studied this shit, motherfucker. I went to meetings when I was 10 years old with that guy and listened to you schmucks and thought to myself, there's no fucking way I'm landing in that seat. Like, there's no way. I'm going to do it different. And the thing is that I was still doing the same damn thing. And I was so convinced that I was going to have a separate result because I had learned so much from those that came before me. I had educated myself so much. And, but the spiritual malady isn't about education. And the difficulty within me, I can learn as much as I want to, but that education is not going to heal me. That education is not going to fix what's going on. You know, I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, and that's just a fact. If you don't have drugs, I won't say no to alcohol. Drugs are my first choice, but I'll take what I can get. Right. And that's just how I am. I stayed sober for a long time. I had a lot of rough stuff in sobriety for me. Shortly after I entered AA, I got pregnant and I gave up that little boy for adoption. That little boy saved my life. I was planning on committing suicide in my first year of recovery because I couldn't see how life was going to be manageable without my drugs. And so I wanted to be done. And I was developing this plan in my head and writing my letters and all that stuff. And then I found out I was pregnant, and that changed the game entirely for me. So without that little boy, I might not be here. And I had the opportunity to be part of giving another family a child, which was a really beautiful thing to be a part of. And I still talk to them today. He's amazing. But I stayed sober off that experience for a long time. And there's a lot of shit that I personally went through in sobriety. Domestic violence, rape. I was always hanging out with rough crowds, always having rough nights, right? And it was almost like I felt like I didn't deserve to have something calm and peaceful in my life. I was so comfortable in a shitstorm that I just wasn't willing to have contentment and the value that I saw for I didn't think I had any value. I really didn't. And I can, looking back, I can definitely see how I treated myself that way. I got pregnant again after Brian and I got married, and we had a little girl, and we didn't get to take her home. She passed. I was a week before my due date, and they wheeled me into the maternity ward, and they said, baby's gone. We're going to have to induce labor anyway. And so I sat there in that hospital room until labor was over, listening to all these babies being born. And you can hear the cries, and knowing that mine wasn't going to cry. And I didn't deal with that. The pain was so intense and so at my core, because, well, that's where babies are, that I just didn't deal. And it took about 4 years, but after that, I got loaded because I didn't deal. I didn't do the thing that we do. You know, I wasn't jumping into the 12 steps. I didn't lean on my higher power. I didn't lean on my people, you know, and instead I went back to whatever I can do to disconnect myself. So I started doing other things alcoholically, like working a ton, right? Forget the steps, forget the prayers, forget all that. I'm going to work. I'm just going to get a job, and I'm going to work, right? And I filled my life so busy all the time and just didn't take care of myself at all. I was convinced I could take care of everybody else, though. You know, I was like the princess martyr, right? Look at all that I've done for you. Now I want what I want when I want it, right? Like there was always that motive behind everything that I was doing. I either want you to think I'm a good person, I want you to show me love, and I don't know any other way to get it. Or I just want to be, in the end, want to be able to say, look, fucker, like you owe me, right? You owe me. Nothing was altruistic in that moment. And 10 months ago, I got on a group called the Living Sober Group on Zoom. They're every night of the week. I logged in at 5:30 and I said, my name's Mary, I'm an alcoholic, and I have 12 hours sober. And after everybody that I knew I had like 17 years, right? And how wonderful that is. You got into AA so young, and you've done such a great job. And I had so much ego attached to that fucking time, man. Like so much ego. That was my worth. And, you know, God gives us exactly what we need when we need it. And so God stripped me of my time, right? I got stripped of my time. And hello, humility. You know, I have 10 months today, but there's a huge difference and a huge shift that I'm feeling within myself. Number one, doing things like this. I'm no longer afraid to talk about the pieces of my story that are painful. Losing a child is probably the worst feeling you could ever have. But I can guarantee you, there's likely going to be something else that life throws at me that's going to be just as painful, right? But ignoring those things gets me loaded. You know, I hate that my kids saw me that way, passed out on the fucking couch, not able to have a conversation or make words that are like that you can understand. You know, that's horrible for a 9-year-old to wonder what the hell is wrong with mom. Why is mom acting like that? You know, I hate that he saw that. It's awful, but it's important that I remember it, you know, and I can heal from that. I have a new sponsor and she's wonderful and she pushes me and she tells me the truth. And most of the time I don't want to hear it, but that's okay. I'm making friends. I don't usually make friends, but I'm making friends, and that's weird and uncomfortable because I'm weird and awkward and most of the time pretty fucking socially unacceptable. And it's just who I am. But I'm making connections with people, and I've started to feel calm. I've started to look forward to coming home and being rested and being cozy in my house with my kids and having a life that others might think is boring. I'm okay with that. Because doing things like this, these are the exciting things for me. Because the hope I pray is that somebody's going to hear what I talked about, and that person's going to go, I fucking went through that too. I wanted to die too. You know, I don't want to die anymore. I don't. I'm okay living. I'm good with it. Good, bad, and different. I'm good with it. You know, there's a lot more I want to do. And so I'm spending my time now trying to figure out what the fuck I want to do with my life. You know, I was never motivated to even try and figure it out before, you know. I started writing. I started, you know, anything creative, taking photos, recording little videos, like doing the things that fill my spirit on an artistic level. And at some point, I'll probably share them. But for right now, it's just enough that I'm doing it. The writing in particular is probably not something I'll share for a long time, but it's important that I do it. I work at a nonprofit for pregnant women and mothers that are trying to get sober. It's a 6-month treatment program, and there is no 12-step literature there. COVID hit and the whole program got screwed up. So I'm kind of on a mission to get as many 12-step related books into that place that I can. My sincerest hope is that for anybody that hears this, that you understand that you're worth it and that your value is placed in the fact that you simply exist. You're important because you exist, not for any other reason. And if you need help, please reach out to me. Mary HK84 on Instagram. Send me a message anytime. I will reach back. I always do. Always. I don't ever leave people hanging. And it's part of what keeps me sober. So please don't feel like you're inconveniencing. And yeah, that's all I got. I'm just blessed that you let me do this. Thank you.